that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
For the first time, the 9 justices of the Supreme Court include 4 women and the first black woman with Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was welcomed here Friday in a special ceremony, taking the oath and taking her seat on the bench. President Biden attended that ceremony, and the court put out a photo of the 9 justices appearing together for the very first time, and the court will look like that for the term ahead. The supermajority of conservatives, 6 of them, 3 liberals. So Justice Jackson does not change the ideological makeup of the court as it gets its work underway today, and she hears her first case. They'll be dealing with issues that involve race and voting rights and gay rights in America. They'll deal with an issue of race in college admissions with affirmative action involving cases with Harvard and the University of North Carolina. They'll look at the electoral map in Alabama and examine whether changes made there have made it harder for black voters to have the same weight. They'll also look at a case in Colorado where a web designer does not want to provide creative services for gay weddings, citing freedom of speech. So it gives you a sense of how these cases really reflect a lot of American life and will also affect the culture wars in our country.
Oh, my God. All right, everybody, get ready for a lot of 6-3s, because the Supreme Court is back in black. Yeah, this is scarier than actually having a court date, I think. I mean, I would rather be called to court than I would, sit through this particular session of our United States Supreme Court. So today they're hearing a case, just so you understand, what it is that they are going to undo in this country. So today they're hearing a case about clean water. Now, you would think, yeah. But the central question in the case that they are hearing today is whether or not the Environmental Protection Agency's regulatory reach extends to wetlands, swear to God, that are not connected to federal waters above ground, but could connect to federal waters underground, capable of reaching waters below the surface. So, If the 6-3, Republican view prevails, what are the chances? Yeah, then the government's authority to intercede in greater land development in the wetland areas, or allow businesses to discharge even more pollutants into those wetlands. Yeah, they will strip the EPA of that authority. Now, just so you understand, the EPA was stripped of authority previously, right? And said that they had overstepped their reach because Congress didn't codify the EPA's authority to regulate greenhouse gases, right? And so you know what happened, right? Of course you do. So what happened was when Biden and the Democratic Congress were able to, they passed legislation that they codified, as we like to say. They gave the EPA that authority in legislation. They actually passed a piece of legislation that stated that the EPA can regulate greenhouse gas emissions. And so the Supreme Court had to, walk away. So you understand that there is an opportunity, as well as, for clean water, there's an opportunity to codify Roe into law to protect same-sex marriage, codify that into law, right? And so this is why they're after the Voting Rights Act. So here's what the Supreme Court today, they're going to do a major environmental piece of legislation. They are legislating from the bench. Whatever happened to no legislation from the bench? What about judicial activism? Yeah, well, now it's okay because it's in their favor. And by them, I mean it's Republican. There used to be a time when you couldn't predict what the Supreme Court was going to do. Now you can. Yeah. So when the Supreme Court sides with Republicans, it's going to actually undo a whole bunch of stuff that we think was done. So today is the environmental. Tomorrow is the voting rights. Tomorrow is the gerrymandering case out of Alabama. This case came because the GOP in Alabama, the Alabama Republicans, which is Alabama, they asked the justices to stop and block a lower court ruling that said that Alabama's districts were drawn in such a way that they were diluting the African American vote. That 27% of the state in Alabama is black, and yet only one of the 7 House seats, or 14% of Alabamians, have their wishes actually represented. And so the gerrymandering of the maps in Alabama has caused African Americans to be diluted into other districts so that they can't have 27% of their legislative representation be what they choose for themselves. No, instead they only get 14% of their representation because of the way the maps are gerrymandered. That's tomorrow's case. Then as we move into the session, we're going to hear a case of a Colorado web designer. She's a web designer. She doesn't want to serve LGBT customers. She doesn't want to make her services available for same-sex weddings. You can't do fabulous? Is that your problem? And so you take it out on everybody else? I mean, what? You can't come up with a really great playlist? What is your issue? What is your thing? You don't know where to find one unbelievably beautiful cake? I don't know. And then after that, we're going to have another race-based case on affirmative action, whether or not we still need, affirmative action, which is just one factor, as you know, in the admissions process. It's just one factor that can be looked at when, Harvard or the University of North Carolina, which are the two plaintiffs that don't want affirmative action anymore. They don't even want any factors that would, allow for somebody to say, hey, I have this going against me my whole life, and still I'm applying to Harvard because I deserve to be at Harvard. So please give me 1 point for overcoming this. So that's also. But then after that, we're going to have the real big voting rights case, okay? This one has to do with something I've been telling you about, the independent legislature theory that says, hey, the states can choose the manner in which the electors are selected. And so if the state legislatures don't believe that you should even vote in federal elections, that you shouldn't even vote in presidentials, that they're going to pick the slate of electors for you, and the Supreme Court says, yeah, that could happen under our Constitution, then you don't get to vote for president anymore in those states where the legislature has decided that they're not interested in what you have to say. They're going to select the electors themselves.